Hey, how are you doing? Welcome to the Trading Bell Show. We are right here at Nakosti Plaza that houses the Kenya National Innovation Agency. I'll be speaking to the CEO, that's Tonny Omwansa, to understand what the agency is all about and what they are doing, especially because this agency is mandated to create a lot of employment when you talk about matters innovation. Come with me as we have set up in his office. Dr. welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Yes, it's good to see you. And you have a very nice, spacious and greenery kind of office on your way here.
It's designed to cultivate a bit of creativity and innovation.
Yes.
Or innovative mindset for that matter.
Great. Okay. Speaking about KENIA, or the Kenya National Innovation Agency, and I know a lot of viewers will be asking the question of what is it up to and all that. I know maybe from the innovation part people can pick a few things, but please endear us to when it was founded and the goals behind it.
Okay,
yeah.
Thanks very much.
Yeah.
So sometimes back we used to have a ministry overseeing matters of science, technology and innovation and higher education for that matter. And based on some of the experiences in other countries, it became clear that you need to have institutions that champion science, technology and innovation. And there was an act of parliament that was created called the Science, Technology and Innovation Act of 2013 that established three institutions. One being the Commission for Science, Technology and Innovation, which is more of a regulatory body, and then a National Research Fund, which is funding the science, technology and innovation space, including research, and then finally the Kenya National Innovation Agency, which was set up to develop and manage the national innovation system. At that time, the thinking was heavily trying to support the creation of commercial value out of ideas and research that come from universities and research centers. But of course, as time has really went by, it opened up that you really need to think about the national system of innovation. And the mission of such a typical institution is to develop and manage that national system so you catalyze creation of jobs and wealth in the knowledge economy. So if the ideal, or let's say a typical model would be, if I am doing some research somewhere in a research center and I have created this ventilator, or I have created this variety of beans, or I have come up with some medicine, whatever, how do I find myself in the supermarkets or the chemist? That's really the big question. And how do you get as many of them as possible and as high value as possible? So in a nutshell, it means you're coming from conceptualizing ideas until you make businesses. And many a times you will do a handshake and somebody will pick up from here, because the researcher may not always be the best businessman. And they may not have the money to scale and do real business. So that's what we're trying to do, but we cover many areas, because you know there are policy issues in that area. There is intellectual property issues, all right. There is skills. There is funding that comes along the way. There is incubation of ideas and acceleration. There is interaction with private sector, and you must manage those engagements. And there is dissemination and empowering people. So there's a range of stuff that we do, but that's the innovation agency for you.
Thank you for that. And Dr. you know, walking here, I saw a lot of almost young guys, a hall full of them. Are these some of the innovators around, or what are they doing?
So the innovation agency actually does not focus on innovating. At this phase of the institution, we focus on creating an enabling environment for innovation. But I'm glad that you observed this many young people.
Yes,
because to a large extent, the younger people relate with the language more. Of coming up with ideas and trying to convert them into business. And so how better would it be than to have young people supporting the creation of that national ecosystem for innovation. So we're fairly intentional in the way we recruit to try and get more younger people, because that's the future anyway.
Let's talk about some of the initiatives that you're focused on. I would like to know, so that at least you can continue on with this creation of this particular culture of innovation.
Okay, so about 2.5 years ago, we started this institution. Pretty much I was alone, trying to create an institution. So there's a heavy administrative component there of trying to put it up. Recruitment, get your HR instruments, get your board, get your policies in place, funding and so forth.
Yeah.
And then we kind of figured out what are some of the things we could begin to do so that then we demonstrate the value of such an institution and also get it known. You know, when you don't have a lot of money, you have to figure out how to do things that then get you known.
Absolutely.
Without spending a lot of money.
Yeah.
You know, a good friend of mine used to say that if you want to be seen to be doing something, and like you're building a house, and you need people to know that there's a house coming up. Instead of spending too much time on doing the foundation, just do one wall first, and then at night do the foundation, and then once the house starts coming up, you can bring down the wall. But anyway, on a light note, we have two priority areas. One is commercialization systems, and the second one is the startup economy. Everything else we do is to support that process.
All right.
So be it policy issues, be it funding issues, be it dissemination, be it awareness, all those are supporting these two pillars. So when I say commercialization systems, we spend time to support institutions, particularly of higher learning and research institutions, to develop their internal capacities to catalyze innovation and commercialization of intangible assets. If I went to a university, if I went to a research center or a TVET, how do I make sure that ideas can actually go to market? So we do what we call institutional support program to support institutions to become more entrepreneurial in their nature. So that's one. The second, we support institutional leaders to realize that they are the ones who will shape the policies and the environments in their institutions. So there's quite some capacity building we do with the, say, vice chancellors or principals or director generals, so that they can make better decisions for a more entrepreneurial institutions. Because we're trying to reproduce ourselves in these institutions. And then we support researchers and innovators to create enterprises out of their innovative ideas. So on the commercialization track of things, we work, say, a typical researcher, guy in a university or a researcher, working on something, coming up with some new value, then you help them to also think the commercialization dimension. So we work with cohorts. We identify, we are very, very aggressive and meticulous in identifying promising research ideas that have significant commercial value. And then we take these people through the journey, including getting them partners and so forth. On the startup economy space, we're interested in how do you increase quality of incubation, acceleration, getting investors or private sector connection. We do run some acceleration programs with a number of partners, and we become more the government arm of those processes. We work a lot with private sector. So the policy issues, the startup bills, all these kind of engagements, we get involved there. Finally, as a way of then disseminating and showcasing what we do and getting the ecosystem engaged, we organize something like the Kenya Innovation Week, which is coming up a few weeks down the road. We also run challenges, like we used to run a National Innovation Challenge. Now we're running a Presidential Innovation Challenge. That's a way of getting out there and creating new value for society.
You know, Kenyans are deemed, even globally, to be quite innovative. I mean, looking at some of our fintechs and all that, and, you know, M-Pesas and all, we have been global leaders in that, and we take some great credit out of that. And so when you sit in this seat, I see a place where the economy could be tapped into because of the young generation that we have, even just generally in Africa, and seeing how we could really tap into that energy up. And I know you're fit for that because we have seen it all, we have the examples. I just wanted you to point out, I know it's 2.5 years or so, are there some practical ones that you can say, yes, these guys came, this is what we have done, this is where we're progressing, and you know, we are waiting to see what is going to blow up?
Absolutely. You're right. I mean, Kenyans are entrepreneurial in nature. I've been in this space for years from a research standpoint. I've taught in universities. I've been an entrepreneur myself. I've been an investor. I now head an institution like this. I've seen it over and over again about the entrepreneurial potential and capacity. It's interesting also to study the Global Innovation Index. And there's something I came to discover that probably many people don't realize. There are indicators that are used to measure the Global Innovation Index. Okay, there are about 7 of them. Some are more of inputs and the others are more of outputs. And one discovery I made, which never gets pronounced as much, some of these variables are about the interventions of government, and some of the variables are about the people. And I came to realize that for Kenya, which is not an analysis that generally gets done, for Kenya, the weight is actually the results of the reason why we end up doing well is because of the people. It's actually less and less about what government has done.
Oh.
All right? Now, then that gives us an opportunity. First of all, it's a very amazing discovery. And so like, you've got a resource here called the people.
The people.
And they're the ones who are making, so, and they will thrive irrespective of the circumstances.
Yeah.
So what happens if we scale up the government's interventions to enable a better ecosystem? And that's really exciting to think about that potential.
Yeah.
Having said so, for the period that we've been running, we've hosted quite a number of startups and researchers and innovators. And I do know, without necessarily going into too much details, a number of research outputs that we see are potentially going to scale. So I'll just give you one to give you a flavor.
Yeah.
I met this lady at Moi University. You might be surprised why I may sound a lot about universities.
Yeah.
And many people think that, oh, maybe there is no innovations. No, it's because we have not supported them appropriately and the systems haven't been refined to enable.
Okay.
World over, institutions of higher learning provide a very good foundation for innovation.
Yeah.
And for me, I would like to be remembered as having woken up that giant.
Okay.
All right?
Great.
So here's a lady, she's called Ramkat. And probably listening to me, she might say, oh, he went and talked about me on television. I mean, I really liked her spirit. She's an academic, typical researcher.
Yeah.
And so she comes up and says, well, you know what? We have so many fruits going bad because maybe they overstayed or they were not taken care of. And then you go to a market like Marikiti and then you find
lots of them on the ground.
lots of them all over there.
Yeah.
Then after a little while, I hear Kenyans died of hunger.
Sad.
It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So sometimes there's a lot of rain. People die because it rained. I heard it in Mombasa 2 days ago. Then the other day I hear the same people are dying of drought. Okay. So for another day. So anyway, this lady in her research comes up with a chemical that if she applies on a mango, she will delay the rotting of that mango for quite some days.
Oh.
And that chemical is edible.
Oh.
So think about the potential.
Yeah.
So from a research standpoint, she has published, it's amazing, and it's she's gotten promotions and, you know, and she has profile of publications. Then the next question is, don't leave it hanging. Let's walk the journey, because you can sort a lot of problems in the food security space.
Absolutely.
She actually was exhibiting during the king's visit. She's one of the projects that was picked for demonstrating to the king. And I have numerous such examples.
I know.
By the way, it was amazing to see the Vice Chancellor pitch with her.
They were together. Let's talk about the headwinds, the challenges that are there in the ecosystem and what you are doing to address that, because there could be young people who are watching, or other people even as well, different age groups that are watching saying, I got these ideas and all those kind of things. But first, let's come to you from your perspective. You've been sitting here and you're looking at it. What are some of the challenges that are facing the ecosystem and what are you doing to address them?
Okay, thanks very much. I mean, for every challenge is an opportunity. So I look at it in both ways. Yeah. First and foremost, I think the pool of ideas that could come from our institutions are not necessarily seen as solutions. So I used to be a faculty member in university, and we would take students through their project process, and they graduate, and then we file the reports. But there were so many ideas that could be, picked up from there. But the system wasn't designed to do that. You get it? Yeah. So, and the incentive mechanisms for faculty to even support the movement of those ideas is limited. Yeah. So that's one, is the incentive mechanisms for knowledge economy. Knowledge economy, I have to keep emphasizing that. Okay. That where you actually have great, well thought out ideas that could be valuable. Yeah. So the incentive mechanisms are not very strong. So that's one. The second challenge I would describe is, unless also private sector, and by private sector I mean people like you, as an individual, and institutions, who have disposable income, could be angel investors, or could be as big as VCs if they have high net worth. Yeah. Whether they recognize startups as a space for investment, and are they incentivized and are they empowered enough?
Okay.
I'm sure you have some piece of land somewhere that you've bought, right? And then you have a title in your house, yes. And you're waiting for the piece of land to be a little, and then you do what you have to do. Or I'm sure you may be waiting for some highway to pass nearby, and then you do what you have to do. And that's fine. But how many startups have you also invested in? So that's the second bit that I think the private sector per se has not been incentivized and empowered enough to tap into the space. I think funding remains a third issue that I would pick, because in a typical national innovation system, government de-risks innovations. What that means is that at this stage, at the formative stages of innovation, it's government that actually puts money, trusts and believes in the people, and takes the risk to actually allow you to test your ideas. And then once these ideas start becoming sensible and mature, private sector picks. That's globally, that's a practice. And there are instruments that are used to manage each of those stages. So I think as a country, we haven't gotten to that point where we see the value of investing in ideas. And you know, sometimes people wonder, why would government then put ideas, put money in ideas that may not thrive? And by the way, I know countries that put significant amount of money. In Kenya, by the way, by an act of parliament or by law, we should be putting 2% of our GDP into research and innovation. But we're not anywhere close to 1%. Not close to 1%. Now, I know countries that are putting upwards, go to Singapore, go to, Korea, and so forth. It's a huge amount of money. Now, it's not a waste of money. It's not like you're throwing money. Even if it is for simple ideas, like here you want to create a camera or whatever that is probably much lighter and so forth. You'll create jobs. So it's not a waste of money. That's because it was an idea. You will buy equipment that then you will use to put together, right? So you're basically circulating that money in the economy, but in the process, you have the potential for creating something new. And then when you create something new and it's a little bit viable, then we put a little more. We use different instruments to put a little more money so that then you can test the market. And in the testing market, you're going to spend the money. The money is going to continue to circulate. Right? And then as you move up the value chain now, you bring in private sector and say, hey, you know what? As government, I'm willing to put in 50% into this idea. You put in 50%, we scale this thing. If we lose, that's fine. If you gain, you take it. Now, that's how you incentivize private sector. That's what government is supposed to be doing. We are on a journey, not yet fully arrived there, but in the course of time. So I've picked for you 3 challenges.
There could be many.
No, they're not there could be. There are many. But let's stop right there.
Anyway, that's where innovation even comes in, at least to address these things. And let's talk about collaboration. And by this I mean, because we have innovations that are coming your way that could scale up all the way international levels, all that. And I'm sure there are ways and mechanisms you've put in place to ensure that collaboration works. Are there any that exist to ensure the culture of innovation is still growing?
Yes. So, the good thing is that private sector is, there are people and there are institutions actually set up to do that. We've done a lot of programs with organizations that are capacity building angel investors. So we've got quite a network of angel investors. We've got a number of VCs that have set up in town, some big, some small, some international. And those are normally the pathways that enable collaboration to take place. Because you need to visualize collaboration for what? Collaboration typically is that give me something that I don't have. You have the strength in it. And what is it that typical innovators would need? They'll need expertise on developing and scaling businesses, 1. 2, resources. Now, when you say developing, it means accessing market and penetrating and proper valuation and strategies for going to market. So this is what the VCs will do for you. All right? But at different stages, angel investors will be more a little earlier stages. But then if you're looking for big kind of funding, then you go more for the VCs. And there are now, and they actually give significant amount of funding to startups over the last couple of years. So that's what I call partnerships for scaling innovation.
All right. There has been some negative news around startups and the startup culture, which I think for me is a little bit not unfounded, but it's normal sometimes in global scales. Sometimes startups don't make it. But Kenya has been a bit on the limelight where we're seeing a little bit of some of the startups being pointed out, hey, they didn't work well. What are these? What's happening? I'm sure it has been something on your desk as well. You've been observing the news around. What's happening? What can be done to remedy this?
Good question. Sometimes when startups also fail, people kind of feel like, oh, it was all about some hot air here. You know, people were faking it, and so on and so forth. And I'll make two observations. One, it's true that when we emphasize fundraising, more than we should emphasize the development of the business, we risk that somewhere along the way, startups will collapse because they have no market. You know, I can give you all the money you need, but then if the business is not converting, then it's not sustainable. Somewhere along the way, there's going to be a crash. And that has happened, where you actually get news, you know, startup X has raised so much money. And sometimes raising money is about how well you can pitch and how well you can position yourself, whom did you talk to, what is their appetite, where was their source of money, and so on and so forth. And you can actually convince. So we've got instances where actually startups have pitched and they've raised quite some money, but then they struggle to actually sort out the business. Maybe the market wasn't there in the first place, or maybe we didn't approach the market, or we grew too fast against certain realities. So that's one context. But the second context is that failure is everywhere. I mean, there's no market that you will develop startups and never have a chance to fail. The probability of failure is always high. There's nothing abnormal about it. But we should be careful not to have too much of the failure because of decisions that we could have avoided. That's the point. But I think the market, the environment, and there are startups that have really succeeded and scaled and are thriving. So it depends on the perspectives, but I would almost think it's a normal context. There is no extreme as such in the examples and the scenario that we have. And thirdly, I will also observe that I think the culture does also contribute. I mean, I used to ask a few vice chancellors, how many of you attended a class on intellectual property? And then barely anyone asked. Okay, then I said, okay, guys, second question. How many of you have mainstreamed intellectual property teaching in your institutions? All right? Why am I asking that question? It's like, you know, or actually, let me tell you another third question. I would ask faculty members, you know, like in some workshop, I've been invited to a Senate meeting. Then I would ask, how many of you know what an angel investor is? Okay, so you don't get the hands. Then I said, but you know, that's the game that people have to play when they're building startups. And the best place to gather that kind of insight is through the education process. So we have a duty as institutions as well to mainstream these issues in education so that as the students get out, or even while they're in, their culture and their orientation is better as they make negotiations on partnerships for funding and business development and so on and so forth. So that then they don't, because they can be misled. And I've had many stories, by the way, in this office, many stories. Oh, my idea was stolen. Oh, you know, I don't want to show my idea because it'll be stolen.
Sign NDA, all that.
Sign this and that. That's okay, but you see, just like having a car, well, I'm sure you parked one. I saw very nice car there. Why are you not scared that it'll be stolen? Because you brought it out. You drove it. You parked it. You don't seem to be scared that it'll be stolen. And actually, I saw you over the weekend. You were showing off. Why? Because you've protected it. You have the logbook. It's yours.
It's mine.
So then now you don't have that anxiety. And you pick the car, the first thing you think about it, what? The logbook. You can't pay before you see a logbook. So similar, just as an analogy, that we are able to sort out these issues if we mainstream appreciation of intellectual property rights, you know, and how to protect and how to create commercial value out of that.
As we come to the end of the conversation, two-part. One, I would like you to speak about what's coming up in the Kenya Innovation Week and what to expect. And number two, for anybody who's watching and saying, I want to speak to the Kenya National Innovation Agency because I would probably, hopefully, want to get helped up, you know, in tapping to the angel investors, the VCs, the incubation part of those things. What can someone do? Over to you.
Thanks. Kenya Innovation Week is coming up between the 27th of November and the 1st of December this year. That's a few weeks down the road. It's not the first time we're doing it. This is the third time.
Okay.
So since I got into office, it's one of the things I kind of designed.
Yeah.
And I look at the Kenya Innovation Week as a melting point of all the components you need in a national innovation system. So you'll find government, the head of state will officially open the Innovation Week on the 27th.
Okay.
And that's the head, meaning government will be there.
It means that.
And all the way to institutions in government that support innovation, including the Kenya Copyright Board, Intellectual Property Folks, KIPI, Anti-Counterfeit Authority, and then all the others that play spaces like, creative, the Film Commission, Film Classification, Presidential Music Commission, and so on and so forth, who support along the pipe of innovation. There will be universities as well. Then there will be academia. And we've engaged a lot with, for example, Young Scientist Kenya. We'll be bringing close to 500 young people who are active in STEM, science, technology, So they have their own challenge and competition, and then they bring the best. So they'll be exhibiting and showcasing. Within that space, there's also the universities. For example, we've got a seminar, a masterclass, a whole afternoon with Vice Chancellor on how do you build a more entrepreneurial institution in your context. And then there's an opportunity to interact with other players. There'll be private sector. We've got some angel investors. We've got a summit on the startup economy. We've got a pitching platform on the Friday. We call it a Commonwealth Pitch Festival, and so forth. There's a huge set of pavilions, and other governments and countries are also participating. This year, we're running a Commonwealth edition. So we built a relationship with the Commonwealth Secretariat in London to kind of try and rally other countries as well to participate. And we've got quite a number, some speakers from different kinds of countries. I can range them: Tanzania, South Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, UK, and Singapore, and so on and so forth. And some of them are exhibiting, some of them are engaging, their successes. India, for example, will have an amazing pavilion just engaging on some of the solutions they've created that could be relevant to this market. So it's a marketplace in a way to look at it. And I think I just met, for example, a few researchers from the US who have been very successful in creating outputs that have become big businesses, and they've raised a lot of money. And they're looking even to scale some of their solutions. They will be there. So there's an opportunity to observe, to learn, to network, to share, and to sell.
That's good enough. Finally, anybody watching and they have the idea, they want to engage you, how do they get in touch?
So as an innovation agency, we're here to build a system for you. If I were to listen to every young person who has an innovation idea, the line and the queue that I would have here was from here to CBD. And that's
some kilometers.
And then that's not a system.
You're right.
So we've been very, very intentional in building the network of incubation hubs and accelerators and technology transfer offices and TVETs and universities. So as you come through, we try as much as possible to kind of direct you to where would you get help closer to you. We will give you that kind of guidance. Of course, you can go to our website and you can get the details. We do run some little funding programs, but we minimize attention to that intentionally because it can distort the effort of trying to build a system.
You're right.
All right. So, but on the website, our contacts are there. Kenya Innovation Agency. You can also look at the Kenya Innovation Week web portal, and you get our contacts. You can write to us. You can call us. We have a team that is available to guide on different kind of things. And when we started, for sure, I used to have a long line. Every day I was like tending to people and say, well, you know what, this is not sustainable. This is not how to do it. Let me now concentrate on understanding the broader ecosystem and directing people. And that is working. That's working.
I know I had closed, but I have to ask you this. What potential do you see, especially in the corporate world? Because this show talks to a lot of corporate heads on how they could tap into the innovators that we have to create more sustainable solutions that would really tap into our economy. What do you see in the future, 5 years from now, if all efforts were geared towards really embracing this culture of innovation?
I know quite a number of corporates. Some have approached me, some have invited me for meetings. Some have set up incubation centers. Within their own organization. I don't need to list the institutions that I know.
Which is good.
Why? Is because they are creating an environment to nurture ideas that are relevant to themselves. Others have grown ideas and bought some of those startups. Others have grown ideas and they've translated those solutions into arms of business within the institution.
Yeah.
Because that's the spirit of creating jobs.
Yeah.
While many young people go through, and that's trying to answer the question, because currently we are somewhere 75% young people in Kenya, and employment rates are not as impressive.
Yeah.
I think that the effort of innovation should always be focused in job creation. Now, as a corporate, you may look at a way of saying, well, I want to innovate in this space and create the next level of products, leveraging the capacities that we have of young people. Okay. Creative, just create for them the space, give them coffee, and let them go crazy. And you just create a model that enables them to develop these ideas, and then you're creating jobs from that perspective. So for me, the answer lies, our greatest pain point as a country is jobs. Absolutely. And if you don't sort out these jobs, these guys are going to come against you tomorrow. Because you look like you have and they don't have.
You're right.
Now, I hear somebody smiling in the background. It's so true. Now, the second bit I will then say is that, you know, we have opportunities to leapfrog and kind of be models of other countries and other ecosystems. So there's opportunity to create solutions of tomorrow. Okay. And that's an amazing opportunity for private sector, leveraging on the talents and innovation in general.
I'm looking forward to the Innovation Week and really getting all these ideas and seeing what's on the offering.
Can I give you a tip?
Yeah, give me.
You'll get a lot of people to interview at the Innovation Week.
Okay. I can't wait.
So you can create a lot of content.
Yes.
And we can get you space there.
Yes.
How about that?
Thank you so much for your time, Dr.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers.
And we wish you well, definitely, because, you know, I feel like you hold a very critical part of what we need to see in the future.
Absolutely.
There you have it. Tonny Omwansa speaking as it is. I mean, saying, you know, what we have, what it takes. We have we have the people. We have what it takes to really skyrocket our innovations to the levels, bringing in even the common world, and I'm thinking even the globe as well at large. Thank you so much for your time. I leave you now with the markets. That's it on Matters Innovation.